29 state attorneys general have taken Meta to federal court in Oakland over youth harm. That lawsuit began because prosecutors sought nearly $200 billion for deceptive youth practices. State prosecutors challenge predatory design, while Meta defends its feeds as constitutionally protected speech. Should tech platforms face addiction liability? What's your opinion? Should courts punish habit-forming software, or should families manage screen time? "29 state attorneys general have sued Meta in an Oakland federal courtroom. They argue the company built features that deceive the public and hook children. The Oakland trial focuses legally on state consumer deception rather than clinical addiction. States initially sought $1.4 trillion before lowering demands to $200 billion. This follows a March 2026 Los Angeles verdict awarding damages against tech giants. Tom, does this courtroom action prove platforms must pay for youth harm?
The Oakland lawsuit shows tech platforms deliberately exploit young brains for corporate profit. To frame this clearly, Meta engineered infinite scroll to maximize ad revenue despite known risks. Think of infinite scroll as a bottomless snack bowl that refills automatically without stopping. Children lack mature impulse control, so automatic feeds trap them for hours. The European Commission also warned Meta that these design tricks breach digital safety rules. State prosecutors rightly compare this lawsuit to historic settlements against big tobacco and opioid firms. Those industries hid internal research about product harms while publicly denying any danger. Campaigners note that tech companies claim passive neutral status while secretly building habit-forming tools. What stands out most is that corporate fines remove the financial incentive to deceive families. When companies pay for harms, they finally fix unsafe design choices.
Tom argues that platforms engineered addictive features to drive advertising income. He believes civil liability stops companies from hiding product dangers from the public. Emily, how do you respond to those claims?
The Oakland trial avoids addiction claims because media habits are not chemical poisons. Legal analysts emphasize that digital media addiction lacks clear diagnostic medical consensus. Reading an engaging screen differs entirely from swallowing a toxic physical defect. If courts punish engaging content, everyday media apps could face endless frivolous lawsuits. Furthermore, holding platforms liable for recommendation feeds threatens basic free speech rights. The Supreme Court recognized First Amendment protections for algorithmic feed curation in Moody. Curating an online feed is like an editor arranging stories on a newspaper front page. Meta invokes Section 230 immunity, while civil liberties groups oppose blunt state restrictions. Punishing feed sequencing will force platforms to censor content defensively, hurting open expression.
Emily warns that digital media habits lack clinical consensus as medical addictions. She contends that punishing algorithmic curation infringes on constitutionally protected publishing discretion. Tom, how do you answer Emily's warning about free expression?
That concern is understandable, but digital media does not need narcotic classification for liability. I agree that proving clinical medical addiction in court involves real scientific complexity. However, this lawsuit targets defective product architecture rather than the underlying written words. Regulating the delivery pipeline differs from censoring the individual messages traveling through it. Legal scholars show that content-neutral rules on recommendation algorithms fully respect the Constitution. In fact, the Oakland federal judge already rejected Meta's premature immunity defense. Companies cannot hide behind speech rights when their mechanical features cause real harm.
Tom distinguishes content-neutral interface mechanics from protected editorial speech. He notes that judges can hold platforms accountable without censoring third-party posts. Emily, what is your reply?
I agree that tech companies deliberately design features like infinite scroll for attention. Yet intentional design does not make software companies solely responsible for teenage well-being. Sociological research demonstrates that adolescent mental health stems from complex cultural and family factors. Technology bans cannot solve personal isolation without broader digital literacy education. Regulatory analysts observe that placing exclusive legal liability on platforms erodes vital parental guidance. Blaming platforms alone lets families and communities abandon their own active digital responsibilities.
The Oakland federal trial brings this fundamental legal tension into sharp relief. Tom insists predatory features exploit children and require strict civil product liability. Emily counters that lawsuits overreach into protected speech and sideline essential parental guidance. The Supreme Court's Moody ruling established First Amendment protections for algorithmic curation choices. The deciding question is whether courts can penalize interface design without infringing publishing rights. In 6 months, check whether the Oakland court issues liability rulings or a settlement. Here are 3 useful phrases from today's debate. First, Tom opened his argument using "to frame this clearly." To frame this clearly, companies need explicit safety boundaries. To frame this clearly, screen habits involve diverse causes. To frame this clearly, financial penalties alter corporate behavior. Next, to highlight a key consequence, Tom said, "What stands out most is that." What stands out most is that parents need better digital tools. What stands out most is that fines force safer product architecture. What stands out most is that children lack mature impulse control. Finally, to acknowledge an objection before replying, Tom used, "That concern is understandable, but..." That concern is understandable, but product mechanics require strict standards. That concern is understandable, but free expression deserves strong protection. That concern is understandable, but families still carry primary responsibility. Use one of these 3 phrases in the comments below to share your view. Thank you for listening, and join us next time on The Breakfast Debate.